Here's the reality. Tommy's right. It's not just race, though. It's also sexuality. Caitlin Clark is a white heterosexual woman in a black and they resent and are jealous of all of the attention and the shoe deal that she got.
She's going to face a level of racism from black players.
Diamond DeShields received racist threats after Caitlin Clark flagrant foul.
Will be very jealous, and that I think is going to be a monster problem. I hope they get over it for the winning. Guys like to win, even if they're not the star. Well, great, we'll get a championship. Well, everybody jump on Michael Jordan's back. Everybody jump on Larry Bird's back.
Caitlin Clark, by the way, absolutely silenced everybody yesterday. You don't need anything extra. You just need to conduct yourself in a way. You have a choice. Am I going to walk around as a sports icon superstar, or am I going to sell my ass to Sports Illustrated and Instagram? Nobody puts a gun to your head. The money's good, but there's a lot that comes with it.
At the moment, the Chicago Sky is genuinely disappointing the sport and casting a negative light on basketball in general.
I'm saying, but at the end of the day, this is hoops, it's competitive, and this is basketball. And you're playing against somebody like me, I classify myself as a dog. So if you're gonna throw a punch, then I'm gonna compete with you. I'm gonna play at the level that you're given. So that's just the player that I am.
Everybody in the league should be ready for it, not just the rookies.
Hey, LeBron, you're 100% right on these girls hating on Caitlin Clark. Y'all petty girls. I expect men to be petty because we're the most insecure group in the world.
It appears like they're routinely taking cheap shots at their opponents. For example, they obviously went after Caitlin Clark in the opening game of the season, which felt like a grudge match and was the first time we really saw them resort to those tactics against her. At this point, there's enough evidence to suggest something's off. Only they know.
I mean, coming into a league that is super competitive with amazing talent here, like, I wasn't coming in here expecting it to be easy because of the name I have. I'm playing for the name in front of me. I'm playing with the letters across my chest. So understanding that and understanding what that comes with, we all we got, we all we need.
Today, there were a few cheap shots that were clearly visible. Marina Mary was struck hard during her initial possession.
I played in the WNBA for 10 years, and when you are a #1 pick, which I was 10 years ago, I know I'm starting to feel old, you do have a target on your back. You came into the league as the top dog in college, and now professional players whom you're going up against want to show you why they are on top.
During garbage time, Caitlin Clark was also faced with a cheap shot. Honestly, I'm not sure what to make of all of this, but I'm beginning to believe there might be some ulterior motive, because immediately following her incredible three-pointer over Cardoso, Caitlin was celebrating as she ran. Later, in the first play, Caitlin was tangled up after Michaela Onyenwere landed on her foot.
Boy, she was cooking.
She's a hooper now. She's a bona fide hooper.
Nothing significant occurred, but in basketball, you usually don't throw yourself into a match in that way. It may just be play recklessly. From what I've observed, it may not be purposeful. Michaela doesn't seem to be the type to be extremely aggressive, but maybe she was advised to be harsher during competition.
You're going to make these women multi-millionaires one day, like Tiger, like MJ. We shouldn't hate on her. We should celebrate her.
There are times when 6 players do that, and Marina M is hit by a cheap shot, but that isn't the main problem here. The referees call it a flagrant play, and I completely agree with their decision. Whether it was intentional or not is up for debate. I won't argue with you if you think it was.
Not tolerate
but I don't think
her.
It was.
Now, I know somebody who said exactly what she said, but said it 4 months ago.
Afterwards, there came this other play that was obviously meant to be following a turnover. Caitlin Clark obtains possession of the ball and presses Diamond DeShields. Diamond is clearly not going for the ball. Instead, she is heading straight for Caitlin, and it's pretty obvious when she makes contact with her knee. Caitlin then leaps up and runs to the bench, which isn't captured on camera, but appears to be an attempt on her part to avoid giving the impression.
Diamond DeShields received racist threats after Caitlin Clark flagrant foul. Many are attributing this to Chicago's sometimes cover, foul ball. 2 things can be true, Ocho.
Yeah.
You can say the play against Caitlin Clark, it wasn't okay. It was a flagrant foul. Yeah. They called it. That is football. They don't do that in basketball. She didn't make a play on the ball. She ran into her. She sideswiped.
While I'm willing to extend some grace, let me say this. Nothing that I've seen indicates that Diamond DeShields is very malicious. Yes, she did body check Caitlin Clark off the ball, but I wouldn't go so far as to call it a body check, because Caitlin was already shoved off by Diamond before that. Then, on the next play, she takes a hard hit from behind. If the first incident hadn't happened, you could probably give Diamond some leeway, but considering everything that's happened,
take,
I doubt
she's a
you can.
woman. And a lot of these...
Heterosexual woman.
True, but
Yeah,
woman
she's
nonetheless, so
straight.
you get something on the victim scale for being a woman. And she's been historically oppressed, according to the same media that's going to be ripping her. They're generally uncomfortable with ripping women the same way that they do men.
If this were just a one-time thing, it wouldn't be a big deal. And let's be clear, the Chicago Sky aren't out there cheap shooting everyone like the bad boy Pistons used to. But they did smack Marina Ma in the face during her first possession against her whole team, and she didn't even make it through the first quarter without being cheap shot at. Honestly, I believe they were trying to hurt Caitlin Clark. It seems like their goal was to rough her up, not necessarily to injure her, but definitely to make it tough for her. We've seen them hit her hard before. And there's a difference between a hard hit that doesn't risk injury, and what we've seen here, these weren't just hard hits.
We saw that before. Okay, they called a flagrant foul. Okay, just because it was a flagrant foul, it doesn't in turn give you the right to send racists and threats.
You know how people are, huh? You know how people are.
No, yeah, it's not right there. Yeah, I know. Yes, of course.
She could have moved forward, but instead she leaned back and struck
We
Caitlin
would
with
not
her arm.
have been talking about it. We're talking about it because it's Caitlin Clark. So if we know that, then we're recognizing the cachet that Caitlin Clark brings. And all I'm saying is ride that wave.
The only possible explanation for striking her from behind would be if she was trying to steal something. But that wasn't the case. She just made a simple mistake.
I think they could. If they ended up matching up with Minnesota, do I think they could beat them the way Minnesota's playing? I don't. But depending on the matchups, I don't think it's ridiculous to think that Indiana Fever this year could make it to the semifinals because, of course, the WNBA, if you win your first round series, that's where you are in the semifinals. If we were having this conversation when they were 2-8 or 2-9 or however they started the season, it would have been a ridiculous thing to think. It no longer is because of the way they're playing.
To put things in context, it's even more intriguing that this occurred when they were trailing by 25 points. It was clear that they were frustrated because they were unable to manage Caitlin Clark, who went on to have a stellar career against them. The WNBA is really promoting this rivalry. The only reason I might think there is some malice from Michaela Onenweir is that the foul happened right after a timeout. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, especially since Michaela has been playing well and doesn't seem like a dirty player. And I actually like DeShields. A few possessions earlier, Caitlin had shot a 40-footer that missed, then stopped mid-fast break instead of going for a layup and pulled off this amazing behind-the-back move. She was clearly toying with them now. The fact that she's even on the floor is impressive. I admire these guys, but it seems like the coaching staff is encouraging an aggressive style of play that seems to be modeled after the Pistons' bad boy team. That kind of play isn't appropriate in 2024. It's pretty embarrassing, to be honest. They really went out in a disappointing way. I'll cover the double-doubles in another video, but they lost in a really bad fashion. To put it simply, there's no room for cheap shots today. There's enough evidence to suggest that the players on the Chicago Sky are the only ones who truly know.
Both of our teams are competing for playoff spots. Like, that's our main focus. That's a selfish thing to just care about an individual award, and she would give you the same exact answer.
And one thing Caitlin Clark does maybe better than anybody in sports right now, makes it about others, makes it about team. Think about it.
She also has to sit there like she can't hear us talking about her, which is handling wonderfully. Caitlin, proud of you on all fronts, but proud of you for handling
The Indiana Fever rallied to defeat the Chicago Sky in their fourth game of the 2024 WNBA season. Rookie phenom Caitlin Clark led the way with a career-high 31 points and 12 assists. The Sky aggressively started the game, sprinting to a 219 lead, and the Fever's triumph sealed their season series against the Sky. There were signs of a Fever blowout halfway through the first quarter, but Kelsey Mitchell and Lexit Hull helped Indiana close the gap to 26-23 by the end of the quarter. Clark then tied the game at 20-9-29 with a three-pointer and added another to take the lead. From that point on, the Fever quickly took over, building a double-digit lead. Benefit Chicago kept the score close for the duration of the third quarter, but the Sky defense's tenacity was affected when Angel Ree and Makala Onyenwere each picked up 4 personal fouls. Clark made 5 of his 9 three-pointers, and an outstanding 10 of his 11 free throws were made. Mitchell scored 23 points, and Nalissa Smith added 14 points and 7 rebounds. Hull continued her scoring run, sinking 3 of 4 shots from beyond the arc to end with 11 points. Reese scored 10 points and grabbed 11 rebounds, her 23rd double-double of the season, breaking Tina's previous record for rookies in the WNBA. Charles with 20 points, Makala Onyenwere led the way, and Lindsay Allen followed with 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists. Additionally, Camila Cardew grabbed 10 rebounds. Kennedy Carter, their leading scorer with 17.2 points a game, was missing owing to health and safety procedures, so Guy had to play without him. Even though Diamond and the Shields attempted to step up with a rough play on the hot star late in the fourth quarter, Chicago felt her absence significantly, particularly her strong defense against Clark. NBA legend LeBron James used X to show his respect for the young guard, calling her cold in reference to her outstanding on-court performance. With this outstanding performance, Clark showed her versatility and poise under pressure. She was able to maneuver through defensive pressure and create scoring opportunities for herself and her teammates. Her precise shooting, which included 5 successful three-pointers, was equally impressive. In addition to enhancing her chances of winning the WNBA Rookie of the Year title, Caitlin Clark made history in the league. She became the first player to ever accomplish such a feat in a single game against the Sky with her 30 points and 12 assists, demonstrating her extraordinary skills and influence on the floor after his initial post-injury, while LeBron couldn't contain his joy. He used the tweet "Caitlin Clark High Haters" to hype up Clark. Her teammates also stepped up with great contributions from Kelsey Mitchell, but Clark stole the show. Nalissa Smith and Lexi Hull, who contributed to securing the win over the Sky.
The Chicago Sky.
Teresa Spoon, the coach of the Chicago Sky, was utterly overwhelmed by Caitlin Clark's brilliance today. It's unclear if her plan was to neutralize.
When you talk about watching a team grow and you talk about gaining that chemistry that you want for any of your teams to have, and when you've had an opportunity to play them and then have an opportunity to watch them play, you see that they're really gelling well together, playing extremely well together. And Caitlin is the head of that snake, and she has that team running and utilizing every bit of everybody's gift. So they're playing extremely good basketball. So it is about a 40 minutes of total focus and execution for us against this team.
Now, let's talk about the main concern. This is a matter that requires attention. Teresa W. Spoon said,
"What does together mean? Man, oh man, when Caitlin Clark does something, everybody celebrates. When Caitlin Clark does something, there is no jealousy." Early in the year, I felt like we saw a lot of jealousy. I felt like we saw a lot of people kind of side-eyeing. The great Joby Wright, great player at Indiana, assistant coach Indiana basketball, used to call it under-eyeing. I'm under-eyeing you. I felt there was a lot of that going on with Caitlin Clark, but really since the end of the first half of the season, you don't see it anymore.
What about Caitlin Clark, who has seen the team play and realized that they are truly gelling as a unit, noticing that they are creating the kind of camaraderie that any team would want?
And one thing Caitlin Clark does maybe better than anybody in sports right now, makes it about others, makes it about team. Think about it. When's the last time you didn't see Caitlin Clark talking about a teammate? When's the last time you saw Caitlin Clark talking about herself or any of the accomplishments that she has had? Let me give you the answer to that. Never! Never! You never hear that. Now, that's why their team has gotten good. She could have been an egomaniac. Everybody in the league knows that she is the league right now. What are you kidding?
Having great basketball play before the game, Caitlin made it very clear that Clark was the main player and the driving force behind making sure everyone's talents were fully utilized, so they were playing exceptionally well. It would take us 40 minutes of intense concentration and flawless
execution. Let's go to Chicago Sky. Chicago Sky are falling off the map in the second half of the season. Why? Well, they got a star, right? Everybody tells me Angel Reese is an absolute star. Look at all the double-doubles. Oh, my God. Well, Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky have made it about Angel Reese, not about the Chicago Sky. Even last night, if you look at it, what they have? Barbie night. We're giving out towels, blah, 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 blah. And when you see Angel Reese, what does she do? She's walking in with look at me outfits. It's about me. When you see Caitlin Clark, what do you see? It's about.
And it's evident that, despite Kelsey Mitchell's belief that she is the team's best player, Caitlin Clark is currently leading them. She is the only point guard similar to her in the WNBA, wearing number 22 from Iowa, who is currently playing
How are you
in
going
Indiana.
to use this as a measuring stick to assess whether or not maybe some changes need to happen?
There were several attempts to annoy Caitlin Clark, not to hurt her, but to definitely knock her off balance, as we've previously seen. But Teresa W. Spoon's plan appeared to entail keeping Angel Reese in the game to secure a double-double. Nevertheless, Teresa lacked a workable alternative. The Chicago Sky did their press conference after the game, and I'm intrigued about what she said. It generally takes the Sky 12 to 13 minutes to start, with W. Spoon arriving toward the end. I'm also curious about the questions.
I think me and Angel would both give you the same answer, like, you don't wake up and think about individual awards. I know that's what all of you think we do. I know we don't. Like, that's what everybody wants to make this about, but like, we both of our teams are competing for playoff spots. Like, that's our main focus. That's a selfish thing to just care about an individual award, and she would give you the same exact answer. I'm sure she has given you the same exact answer. So
It's important to dominate the paint, especially when they control it. But it can be difficult to dominate when you're shooting 30%, as Cardoso failed to do. What they not see? This is their 5th loss in a row. After losing each of the previous 4 games by a maximum of 4 points, this time by 19 points. Angel and I believe we would both respond to you in the same way. That is, that you don't wake up and consider specific awards. I'm sure she's told you the same thing. So what's missing from this team? There are a few things that need to be addressed, starting with defense. They identify as a defensive team, but I'll say it, they no longer play defense. I know that's what everyone wants to make this about, but like both of our teams are competing for playoff spots, like that's our main focus. That's a selfish thing to just care about an individual award. It's evident that this squad no longer plays defense. Despite their claims to be defensive, they traded for their best player. And you still
Well, it
don't
was so
defend.
great because
I mean,
that's what you see online, right? Is Angel Reese only rebounds like this, especially on the offensive end, because she gets so many of her own misses. So I was like, well, I wonder how many of her own misses she actually gets. And what the Sports and Information Group came back with is the number, I think it was like 55 of her offensive rebounds at the time were off of her own misses. Well, if you do a little bit of math, you realize she would still be leading the league in offensive rebounds per game if you took away all of her own misses. And that's not if you also took away other people's misses. Of course, every player, especially big players, get some of their offensive rebounds off of their own misses. So if you just take hers away and let everybody else keep theirs, she still leads the league in offensive rebounds.